As business owners, we often find ourselves complaining about the government. What are they going to do to us next? But they can be useful to us as well. And one of those avenues is the economic alliance, or whatever it may be called. But I know there's a lot of questions out there around how do we leverage government? How do we leverage the economic alliance, development or alliance? What can they do for us? What can economic development do to help our business? Today, we're going to get answers to those questions. Welcome to the Keyhire Small Business Podcast, where we cover the issues that help owners scale their small business. I'm Corey Harlock, creator of keyhire.solutions, where we like to grow Texas small business with our talent, and I will be your host. Our guest today is John Marez. He's an elected official for over 20 years. He's worked with economic development, so we're going to get some firsthand information here. John's a small business owner, and he consults with government, profit, not-for-profit businesses and entities to help them do better. And he also is a former talk show host. He had a talk show host where he dealt with public affairs for almost 30 years. I think it was 28 years is how long he had that show going for. So, Matt, let's bring on John. John, how are you doing?
Doing great, Corey. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So, government official for 20 years running here. How has your run in government been, and what is your draw to working in government?
Well, it has, I think, the chance to help business in many ways. Obviously, you learn a lot from the inner workings, being there on the other side of the sausage making, right? The proverbial sausage making everyone talks about, but it's been informative because been able to be part of the solution, the direction that we've taken in our community. I lived in Nueces County, Corpus Christi area, and so there we have really worked on focusing on building up big business through corporations in their industry. For me, being able to get that experience and learn not only the best practices, but also be able to support it on the public policy side. I've seen the need from those who are coming in to ask in the community. We'd like to grow retain because there's competing communities that want to come and take those companies that have started off maybe in their areas. So it's a competitive process. So learning about that, seeing it firsthand, being part of the public policy side of deciding what rules or ordinances that should be put in place to help support that have really been part of my formal and informal education on this. And then just realizing that you have to have a good, committed government entity, whatever that level may look like in your area of the community or the country, is important to know them. So all that I think comes together and helps me have a somewhat unique perspective on this.
Cool. And that's great background. And so we're talking about the economic development today. And you said it can have a couple different names depending on the government or who's talking about it. But what is economic development as it falls into local government? How would you define it, or how would you explain it to someone?
Right. Well, many communities, almost every community you look at nowadays, have some sort of formal economic development. It's a form of a governmental board that's most times appointed officials that are representing different parts of the community segments, industry, small business, large business, just regular community members or elected officials. And they all come together to create these entities that are incentive based most of the time, that have created packages and programs that are available to businesses that are looking to grow or looking to remain in certain communities, because it is a competitive now. And so having this economic development or economic alliance that is in your community, they are there with tools, they are there with resources for the most part, and they're going to be there to help support business. It's going to be our jobs as business owners, or those that are looking at expanding and growing their business from maybe mid-level to larger, to see what incentives are there. Obviously, some communities bigger are going to have more resources. Some that are smaller may not.
Sure.
But you'd be surprised. There are a lot of smaller communities that realize that they're competing against communities 2-3 times their size, and they have to offer just the same package or even better to retain or attract businesses in their community. So it's very competitive, and it is a process that most communities, townships, cities, counties are taking on.
You said the word incentives. Like what, help me understand when you say they might have incentives for small business, what kind of form would those incentives take, or what could they take?
So there's various incentives. There's programs that could be funded, say from the state or federal government, that are then funneled down to the local level. Most of the time, it's self-involvement. It's self-investment from the community. It could be in the form of tax incentives. It could be in the form of a tax portion, small portion of the taxes that you pay in your community that can go directly to the economic development, right? And so, because we all understand, for communities to grow and thrive, they're going to need business to be expanding. And so, when you look at other communities, they want to take what you have, right? They're not going to just sit back and say, "Come to ours because we have great weather," or "It's a wonderful place to live." Well, how many thousands of other communities can say that? It's what can be offered to companies, what can really generate some interest on their end to say, "Hey, we want to go to the next level. What does our local community offer?" And once again, those abatements that could be offered depending on the area of the country you live in, um, dollar amounts that actually can be invested in storefront improvements, in sidewalk improvements, in sidewalk programs, where if you're reinvesting in a main street that maybe at one time was very vibrant and over the years kind of just fell apart.
Right.
There's incentives to repave your porch or your front steps right there in front of your office. Things like that are kind of tiny, but kind of give you a better feel for that front step that people take into your business. Those that are expanding and going globally, there's all kinds of incentives that can be offered to them. Also with programming, when your local economic development is coordinated with state coordination. Here in Texas, we have the Governor's Office for Economic Development. That is your step to really looking at bringing and retaining those big companies in the state. And so most states have done that as well, but there are a few that have fallen behind, and they need to catch up because everyone's fighting for those precious companies that are really showing opportunity to grow.
Okay, that's so. It sounds, what I'm hearing is there could be some, or there could be lots of different things that a business owner, not just the big businesses, but the small business owner, could take advantage of, which leads into the next question. What opportunities, or I don't want to use the word mistakes, but what opportunities do you think small businesses are missing out on by not knowing that there is an economic development in their neighborhood, or not engaging with them, or not being curious about, I'll just complain about the government versus, well, let's see if maybe we can work with them. What mistakes are they making out there? What opportunities are they missing?
Well, they may think they have to go it alone, right? They may think that, just the typical, our spirit of entrepreneurship, that, we're going to do it on our own. We're going to take
That's a
all
great
this
point. Yeah.
investment, life savings that we've done on our own and build up from that. But the government can be used to help incentivize that for you. So there's people in the community that they don't have that spirit. They just want to go do their job, and that's great. There's all types of jobs in this country, but for people that to say, you know what, I pay my taxes, or I pay this amount that goes eventually into economic development. I don't have that spirit of entrepreneurship, but maybe someone else does, and they knowingly are supporting a growing, vibrant economic culture in their community. So tap into that. There's people who are doing it knowingly. Sometimes, right, we just pay a general fund for taxes and don't realize where it can all go into. But those that have really developed an economic development alliance organization in their community that's funded through taxes or taxpayers or some sort of incentive-based program, it's there for the taking. And if you don't take it, obviously someone else will. And especially if you're looking at growing, you have that ability to then leverage that to other communities, right? Maybe you love where you live and you want to stay there, but you also got to be realistic and say, hey, what are other communities offering to me, and share that. Say, look, I'm willing to stay at my community because they're offering me this. What can you offer me? Or what will you do for a growing business like mine? And then there's the opportunity to talk about expanding your horizon, expanding your growth potential that you have, your vision that you've set, for your
And
company, and that I think is most important. Is people are missing that. They're not realizing that the economic development is a catalyst for growth, and when developed properly, can help you uh, grow, can help you retain employment or exposure to other communities, perhaps as you maybe franchise out or build out further. So those are some of the things I think that many people miss out on and don't really put much effort
did
into
I,
learning about, is those economic development corporations.
John, did I hear you say that? I think I heard what you thought you said here. So did I hear you say that you might love your community, but you might go to them and say, "Hey, we're not getting what we need from this community, so we might need to move our business," and kind of see what they're willing to do to keep your business in their area? Was that, did you say that, or did I mishear?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's something that could be missed. And I don't know how much I can get into examples of large companies, but if you're from Texas or from the South, you know a company named Whataburger. They're well known for their burgers, and they're
Yeah.
growing. And their headquarters now is in Chicago, I believe. And it quickly went from Corpus Christi, which was the area that I represented in Corpus Christi. They were looking for incentives. We gave them everything that we could. In the end, they moved up to San Antonio, then eventually I think to Dallas, and then now they're in Chicago, all within like a 10-year period. It was a pretty quick rise that they had, but it was all based on economics. And there were some other factors that I'm sure that were playing as well. But when you love, that was a hometown product that people just like religious about in their eating habits. And so those are
I'm
familiar with that brand
I'm
understand that, right?
I'm
You eat right.
Whataburger all the
I
way,
just had
man.
it
I will
yesterday
tell
for
you,
lunch.
it's my
So
number one. Yeah, for sure.
that's right. That's right. So that's I mean, that's a prime example I can think of that our community did everything we could to keep them. And we offered them a great package. But in the end, I mean, we closed down a street for them because they wanted to close it down for better access and controlling just to get to their headquarters that they had, all kinds of things that we offered. In the end, just, when
Right.
the community against bigger communities, sometimes you just lose out. But we did everything we could. So all I'm saying is to your listeners out there is do everything you can to engage your local economic development. Find out what they can offer. And if they're not doing enough, then make something of it. You go to those policy deciders there that are elected or appointed officials and make sure that they invest in that, because it may not still not benefit your business, but it's going to help the business environment in your community.
Right.
And I think that's what it's all about.
The community picture, I think, is greater than the individual business, because the stronger the
Absolutely.
community, the whole rising tide raises all boats kind of mentality.
Absolutely.
So, as you know, we always like to angle it towards the small business owner, and
Right.
obviously they don't have the leverage of a Whataburger or these big things, but they are in most senses the cornerstones of the community or of their area. They might just kind of go along and do their business and think, like, we're just here, it's an affordable place to be, we can produce or run our business kind of unbothered. But what I'm hearing is, there could be more ways that they, like, once you tap into the government, there could be lots of things there. But I think maybe one of the questions they have is, I don't have time to do that. It's going to take forever. And so what would you say to that business owner who's like, sure, I'll go to the government, I'll have to fill out 100 forms, it'll take 3 years to get anything done, and will it be worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right. And it depends on what's set up for you, right? What's already existing there. That's why I'm saying some of it may have to kind of be developed and nurtured by you if you're not seeing that kind of support or that
So they
level
would
of
have to be
support you
committed.
need.
They would have to be committed to kind of, if it's a unique thing, to spearheading that program and kind of driving it and pushing if it were important to them.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be just government, right? It could be a public-private partnership, some sort of alliance or a group that could be created that doesn't have to be all about just government providing that. So, once again, with our spirit of business and looking at other opportunities, we can make this happen for us, for ourselves to take advantage of, or for, like I said, those in the community. But in the end, going back to like the Whataburger example I gave, they started off as a small business, right?
Yeah.
They skyrocketed over a matter of decades, but that's the potential, right? And they kind of did that all on their own. But in this day and age, once again, competing with all these other communities, there's it would be hard to find communities. Maybe if you find some that are really smaller or very limited in what they're offering as far as levels of government service. But there are going to be something that could be tied into your chamber of commerce, something tied into your city hall or your county courthouse, or some sort of combination of local government, what that looks like to you in your area of the country. That is where you could tap into. And many times you're going to find various levels of development. You're looking at tax abatements. You can get that depending on where you live, tax abatements for your schools and others. Those are for bigger companies, but it depends. There's criteria. There's criteria based on how many jobs can you deliver, right? It's a contract that you enter into, and there's certain parameters, certain policy that's written in there. It may be a certain number of percentage of jobs created. It may be a specific dollar amount that you need to exceed. It may be the size of facility you're serving. It could be any combination of those. It may
Right.
not be, maybe only one of those categories. So you got to find out what's there in your area. But once again, when you connect with policy, I mean, the good thing I think about is that those that do work in government, they're looking for the next best thing, the new best way. They're taking a lot of business principles and applying them to government, which I think has helped government overall over the last 10, 20 years with a different mindset than before. You're going to
Right.
find people who are very ambitious, who maybe have that business background, who are now working in government, and now they're trying to develop these business incubators or other opportunities in their area to help grow and flourish. So those are the people that I think, if they haven't already, or maybe subtly looking into that, that they may be the ones that you approach. And once again, maybe they'll take it off on their own. You don't have to have your own crusade because, hey, I'm worried about my own business. But with people that you can find and connect with your community that are willing to do that or take your economic development to the next level, there's many different sources to do that. And I gave just a few, but if you do, a search on the internet, you can find like-sized communities or those in your area of state or within the country that you can find of how they offer incentives. And so I think that's one of the best ways to start, is to look at those groups, find who those stakeholders are in your community and engage them and learn how can I apply it to my business as it's growing and ready to take that next level.
So I think you alluded earlier to, we know how the sausage is made. A lot of people, me included, would love to be a fly on the wall when you guys are creating economic development policies for the community. Can you provide a 30,000-foot overview of what that? I'm thinking of, you remember that old the old how a bill gets passed cartoon? I'm thinking, like, what does it look like when you sit down and say, look, we've had X number of business owners have kind of touched on this topic over the last
Right.
few months. I think we need to put a provision in here. I mean, obviously the way you do it might be a little different than others, but
Right.
kind of at a 30,000-foot overview, what does that process look like? How does the government or the local government say, yeah, we need something here? And then what does that process look like to get there?
Yeah. So I would start off with, assuming your local government has something in place, however it looks, however it's created, something established to be able to provide incentives for job creation, business creation, or retention or expansion. Um, that's assuming you have that in play. Then you would need to engage that staff, right? Once again, quickly looking up on the internet, you could pull that up. Many of your listeners would probably already know that exists in their community, or you could quickly find that within a few minutes, and then find who those people are, and then see if they have I would say the best places obviously have the ones that are very interactive, right? Where you can do your research on your own on the internet, hoping that they do have a lot of that information that's at hand. You can do your research, but find those staff, engage them and say, what does the typical cycle look like? Is this open only certain types of times of year? Is it available any time? Like, I have a business that's ready to expand to the next level. What can I do? What do you have in place for me, for my company? And then get those basic answers addressed, and then see how can you tie into applying, right? Assuming that it's an open enrollment throughout the year, or what times of the year do you go and petition your city council, town council, commissioners court, whatever it may be. Even school districts have incentives. Those are used typically for larger businesses, but those are in place as well in some parts of our country. So find those areas out, find those contact persons, and then decide, can my business match with what they're currently offering? And if it doesn't, once again, try to make something happen with it, because everyone is competing at this level. It's not a matter of if, it is just a matter of when your community gets on board to establishing recruitment, retention, creation of some sort of programming there. And so that's the best way to do, is to approach them, to find out what the process is to apply, and then see, what is your vision, what are your plans, do they coincide with what's available out there? And if they do, then it's a quick, easy marriage, and then you can start matching up with them and then finding what the incentives are, and work through that contact person or staff, and work with them to help establish the checklist that needs to be completed to be able to fill out an application, get it before the board politic, whoever that is, and then they hopefully will, select your group, your company. So that's kind of the easiest way to go about it, is to kind of just do a little bit of research, see if it's there, and then see at what levels do they compete. And I tell you, it's still an evolving program. Even the best of them are still looking at how can they incentivize. And many communities now, Corey, are looking from going from bigger incentives to the large companies to, hey, we want to invest in more of the mid-sized companies, because that's where the growth is, that's where the retention is, that's where you can create a job market that you want. And that's what I think is being missed by so many communities. But I am seeing those trends happen throughout the country as I kind of go spot checks of my favorite organizations throughout the country, the different, like, small, mid-level, and large size communities, to see what they offer. And you'll see that that's where the growth is in those mid-size companies, or the small ones ready to take that step to the mid-size in all areas, right? And it doesn't have to be industry production. It could be anything, e-related, anything with just creating any kind of product. There are plenty of communities that are offering packages that can match large cities, just because they want you to come there and live there and establish reestablish their communities.
I think a lot of the view has previously been, if we can get a big employer, then that will bolster all of the surrounding area and all those companies. I mean, I'm originally from a town called Oshawa, Ontario, which is outside of Toronto, Ontario. And our claim to fame was we had 3 GM factories, right? Our motto was the city that motivates Canada. And it was not a secret that if we lost the GM plants, that town would disappear. Well, there are no more GM plants in Oshawa, and it's still, now it's a kind of it's a Toronto lunchbox community, but it's still there, and real estate's still expensive as hell. But I think what I hear you saying is there might be a change in the world, in the views of, and I'm a proponent of supporting the smaller businesses, because they're the Fortune 500s of tomorrow. And so by going after those small, medium companies, building maybe a grassroots program and helping those companies grow, if you don't have a major main employer, but it's kind of doing it by committee, having these companies all grow together. And as they grow together, they will create more jobs and more demand for jobs and more businesses around them, because it'll bring more people in, and you're kind of growing the communities and the economic development and the stability of the community more organically, versus just trying to get one big player to come in and kind of prop everyone up.
I totally agree. I mean, that is the trend nowadays, that many communities are realizing it doesn't have to be the GMs, the Teslas of the world. Those are great. But when you can bring in other companies that can get you close to the same amount of employees, or you get multiple that eventually add up to that same amount. You're I won't say hedging your bet, but you're spreading out, you're diversifying, you're not putting all your eggs in
Yeah.
one basket, right?
If you get Tesla,
That's the approach.
if you get Tesla, then the state raises the taxes and they go, well, yeah, we can take the hit and move to the next state. Now you just you have a crater. Now you have a community that was thriving and it goes to zero based on that one big company. That I like the organic approach of just having, these business owners that are working hard to grow together and creating that community vision, whether they're doing it in lockstep or intentionally together or not.
Right.
But when you have good business owners doing what they do and trying to improve their lives and the lives of their employees and their employees' families, which in turn improve the communities, you're going to get that, I think, a more stable foundation for especially a smaller community.
Right. I totally agree. That's what economic development that most communities are trying to embrace now, is the spreading out, the diversifying of companies in their communities, and that will help when these changes, these movements, migrations of companies move from one area to another, that you don't feel it as big. In my community I come from, you definitely feel it because they rely on large industries and several big employers. That can make a hit, and you see so many that happen throughout the country or throughout the world, that when someone shuts down, you feel it, and it's just a shudder that feels from the top down, and all the supplementary businesses that were created or been supported by the mass amounts of employees there have now dwindled away, because the population has to move, they have to follow the jobs. And so
Yep.
by creating those businesses and taking after those opportunities for self-investment, once again, community self-investment, that's the way to help ensure that your community stays healthier, should you take a hit from a large employer. So
Right.
I love that approach, and I totally agree with what you're saying.
I just thought of this, but do you feel like the small and mid-sized business owners aren't leveraging the programs as much because they feel like maybe A, the programs aren't targeted at them, or the other side of that, B, they don't have as much influence in the community as you and I think and know they do?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, some of it is, well, I think still some communities still have that mindset of they're targeting only the large company, right? They're going for that big hit that
The
just
home run.
captures in people, the home run, ooh,
Yeah.
and all over it. So I think there's part of that. And then I think also it's the influence that, once again, when you engage your local policymakers, those that are appointed onto these boards or elected onto these boards, the staffers themselves, when you engage them, they may need some education themselves, realizing that, hey, we're just thinking about the big home run. We're not realizing that it's the mom and pops, it's the small and mid-sized businesses that are growing or have the potential to grow. That's
Right.
where the stability is. That's where the good paying jobs are. That's where the connection is. Because once again, you look at our example that I gave, you can look at any community where it's just like nice corporation that's there, and then they by I guess just naturally will want to move up to a larger size community based on just available resources.
Yeah.
But this is a way to ensure that self-preservation, that you're making yourself almost airtight to anything seeping in your community that will take away something that the community is invested in, taking part of their own identity as well.
I like what you're saying. Like they're trying to hit that home run, but they're not realizing they have dozens, if not hundreds, of amazing businesses in their community that are
That's right.
this close from taking the steps they need to be those big businesses. It's an interesting concept. It's been a super interesting conversation. I'm learning a ton. The last question I have for you here, John, is if I'm a small business owner and I'm thinking, okay, this economic development thing, I've kind of poo-pooed it in the past. I haven't really bought into it. I've thought government is just it's gonna be a time suck and not worth my investment. what kind of one, two, what are the first, second, third steps they should be doing? And you kind of danced around it a little bit before, but let's revisit it. What are the first kind of steps they should be taking to get engaged with their economic development and get the benefits that are there for them?
Definitely. Well, step one, definitely, once again, is you got to make sure, just quick research, does your community offer some sort of entity like this, right? Is it a public-private partnership? Is it solely done by?
What do they Google? What would they research?
They would Google economic development, right? And then name your community, your county, your township, wherever you live, and name that, and then see if it pulls what it pulls up. You'll find quickly either yes, there is something in existence, or no, there isn't, or they just maybe don't have a good social media footprint, which is not good either. But assuming that you can find that out, then the next step would be to engage their staff and or research online. If the website's really good, it's going to give you all kinds of incentives that are offered that you can research and see, does my business apply to it, and then engage staff on that to say, I feel my company does apply to this program that you offer. How can I find out more? What can I do? Is this on a calendar basis? How is the open enrollment for these programs? And finally, obviously apply. But you got to make sure that in that if you don't have this in place, if you have only maybe a small growing economic development group, then get engaged with them, with those policy makers, to make sure that they're incentivizing at the right level. Because for those of us that are small, mid-sized businesses that want to go to the next step, is those communities haven't been educated yet to realize it's about all of us together, not those big home runs, but multiple, tens or hundreds of small to mid-sized businesses that are making our economy grow. It's not just that one factory, that one plant. So invest in us. So it's going to take opportunity for them to learn that way. But mainly, you got to research it online. You got to engage the staff, and then ultimately apply. See if the program works for you, and if it doesn't, get them to change it so that it does apply to you, because your business is worth it, and your business is worth investing from the community, because they're investing in a large pool of money to retain or recruit or create businesses. That's what they're in the job for, and that's the key element of why they're created. So engage them, make sure they create the opportunities for you, or make the opportunities yourself for you by educating staff and or elected officials about the importance of self-investment, and it will pay dividends for growth.
And so I think,
and hopefully for your business.
I think I was understanding there as you were talking, like if there is economic development in your community, they're happy to kind of shepherd you through the process if you reach out to them. Like you don't just Google, go online, do the self-research, apply, and cross your fingers. You can reach out to them, and hopefully someone in that office is like going to take you by the hand and say, let's talk about your business. Let's see what works for you. Let's see what's happening. Here are the parameters. Here's the time frame. So it's not just you're not alone walking through this. You can utilize that resource as well to guide you through.
Hopefully you have at least a couple of people that are working economic development in your community, depending on the size that you live in.
Right.
Even if it's just one, yes, you should have somebody that you can reach out to and need to, right? Until you become familiar and comfortable with the program. You may not get it in the first try that you're putting in, but of course, persistence is key. And so get them informed and updated about you, why it's important that they eventually recommend, if they are the ones that pass along recommendations, why they would recommend to that board or that committee that you are worthy enough to receive this investment, and have your plan ready. Have it. I mean, they got to buy into your plan and your vision as much as you have already done yourself. And so I think that when it's all combined and said and done, and especially if the market is very limited and people who are taking advantage of this funding, then you have a great chance of utilizing something that's there that most aren't even considering at this point yet.
I think you just made another interesting distinction. You don't just call up and say, hey, I have a business and I saw your program, and they're going to hand you a bunch of cash. You have to put some work in. And I think this is the hump we need to get business owners over, because it could be an amazing resource for them, but they could also have effect on their local community by influencing the policy. But there's an investment. They got to put the work. They got to do the diligence. They got to put the information together and present it in a way that makes sense for them to be awarded these programs. They also have to wait. Like I think I heard you say, they might not get accepted the first time around, or they might have missed the window. So this is a long tail investment, or a long tail investment of time and some resources, but the payoff could be not just for your company in itself, which is great, but if enough people do this correctly and put up their hand and get involved, they could improve the policies for current and future businesses in their community to build a stronger community. So they really have to be. Am I accurate in saying that?
You are absolutely spot on with that. I agree.
So they gotta have to like take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm gonna do this. I know it's gonna be a little frustrating. I know I'm gonna have to do a little work. I know I might have to knock on a few doors. I know I might not get the answers I want. But if I stick with this, and if enough of my fellow business owners stick with this, we can make a change.
It's all all of us in business, we all talk about the grind, right? What that grind is what we have to rest the flesh. We have to make phone calls. We have to make it happen for ourselves many times. And that's what this is all about. It's just part of that grind that's included. So just consider it part of your checklist that you have to do to prepare as you're creating jobs or as you're moving to that next level.
Yeah. And that was kind of, that's an interesting point, because I think if as a business owner, you look at it from more of a community, I hesitate to use the word global, but a community perspective, like, I'm going to do this and it's going to benefit my business. And it's going to be, if you think of it like that, it's going to feel hard and long and frustrating potentially. But if you think it's going to improve my business and my friend's business and their son's business when they open one down the road, years down the road, and I'm actually going to help make this better and affect change, maybe that is the motivation that will get them to take that initial step in Google, right? Google the economic development and then make a call and say, hey, what are you guys doing for a business like mine? And start that conversation and start that process.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this is
the way to do it.
John, this has been good. It's been enlightening for me because admittedly, I'm one of those people, like, I'll just run my business. The less I have to get involved with the government, the better. And it truly, right? That's been my perspective. But and as you and I both work with small business owners, and we always want to be able to, whether it's in my scope of expertise or not, be able to provide them resources. And there are a lot of business owners out there. I get to work with them, and I'm sure you do too, that they want to run a great business, but they also give a shit about the community and want to create a better community for their employees and the families of their employees and future generations, and have big hopes and dreams for their companies. And I think this is just one more tool they can put in their tool belt to help them get there.
Absolutely. Exactly. Just one other tool to use.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking some time for us. If anyone wants to learn more about this, how to maneuver government, or wants to kind of talk to you about their business and how you might be able to help them, how can we reach you?
Sure, they can reach me on my website. It's jmarmanagement.com.
Perfect.
And there it is on the screen, and you can reach out to me. All my contact information is on there. I'd love to be able to pass along my experiences or any advice that I have. It's all about helping each other out, and especially communities that don't have this tool yet. It'd be important for them to take it on and grow and use it for all businesses, small, big, and large.
Very cool. Matt, did we have any other contact information, or is it just the website? No, he's not flashing anything up. So that's it. All right, John, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy. We appreciate you taking the time. I think this has been super valuable, and it's been a pleasure being able to speak with you this afternoon.
Well, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed the offer to be on here. I enjoy your show. So thanks. was a privilege to be
Awesome.
on.
Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. There he is, John Marr. So I want to thank him for coming on and educating us on the government. And I also want to thank you for tuning into the Key Hire Small Business Podcast. If you got value out of today's episode and want to keep up to date on our new content, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like to view your content. If you prefer to listen to your podcast, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, whatever your favorite platform is. Just search Key Hire Small Business Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about working with Key Hire and how we can help your small business with our talent, you can schedule a meeting on our website. We're a help first organization, so we guarantee you we will not sell to you. There will be no weirdness. We're just there to help you if we can. Thanks for listening. I'm Corey Harlock, and until next time, stop grinding, start growing.